Welcome to the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Join us each week as we sit down with the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management and author of Your Fiscal Physical, Ryan Nelson. Tune in to gain valuable insights and practical tips as we simplify complex financial concepts into digestible lessons. From budgeting to retirement planning, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering financial literacy.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this week for the Fiscal Physical Podcast, hopefully your weekly dive into financial literacy. And my name is Aaron Hoisington, and I am joined by Ryan Nelson, the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management. Let's start there. Ryan, how are you today?
I'm doing well today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, my man. I do have to ask before, a while back at this point, probably months and months, you had mentioned you were doing a language app. I think it was called Pimsleur or something like that. Are you still
memory?
doing it? Yeah.
Good memory. Yep.
Cool.
Still chugging away at Pimsleur.
I was just curious. It just popped into my head as I was doing the intro. I was like, oh, I wonder if he's still doing that. Which is awesome. I feel like that's a cool thing that there's apps out there for everything, but there's only one Fiscal Physical podcast, and that's what we want you guys to tune into. Set your watches for every Tuesday there for sure. But Ryan, you ready to dive in, man? I'm excited about this one, and you're going to find out why.
Let's do it.
All right. So this week's episode, we are going to be diving into vacations.
That sounds fun.
Everybody loves vacations. Everyone loves getting away from the grind a little bit, relaxing, however you might spend your vacations. But some might say that there's some financial repercussions of those, or they tend to cost money overall. So
sure do.
I'm a big fact guy. I love facts. Nearly 40% of Americans today, found this on Google, so trust it as you will, regret how much they spend on vacations. So nearly 40% of Americans regret how much they spend on vacations, and that number kind of a little bit surprised me, but not really, because I feel like vacations, you should never really regret what you spent. You should love the memories and what you get from these specific things. So in my mind, I'm like, well, 40% of Americans are taking vacations wrong. I would say, but I think,
or maybe you're taking them wrong.
Maybe
you're not spending enough money.
Maybe I'm not spending enough money overall. So, I believe that I have come back from a vacation and been like, whoa, got to run the finances on this one here. Like I definitely overindulged at the Cabo Wabo Cantina or something like that. But I do think there are some smart strategies to be able to imply to, plan for a vacation and be able to ensure that you're doing it in the right way financially. So I'm curious, Ryan, to get your thoughts on this one. One, do you enjoy vacations? I suppose I should ask you that.
I love vacations.
Oh yeah, every day is a vacation when you're Ryan Nelson.
That's right.
But so I'll go ahead and pause here. Let you take it away as far as like the financial breakdown here.
Yeah, so it kind of was surprising to me if 40% of people regretting how much they spend, but also on the other hand, I do think that's interesting and a bit telling. I think a lot of us have this sort of trade-off, this like back and forth with ourselves, almost like the devil and angel standing on one shoulder, right? And sometimes we do feel guilty about what we spend. And I think that, we've talked in previous podcasts about kind of, if you have proper processes in place where you're saving enough on the front end and you're sort of, again, I like the terminology, like saving for yourself first, then or investing in yourself, what that helps you do is be able to spend the rest of your money guilt-free. Right.
Love that.
So
love guilt-free spending.
Yeah.
That's
so
phenomenal.
I do think there is some interesting takeaways there where I bet a lot of those people who feel guilty about how much they spent, or regret how much they spent, I bet a lot of them, the reason why they regret it is they have feelings of guilt that maybe they aren't paying off their credit card, or they're not saving enough for retirement, right? And therefore, that's why they feel guilty. And so if you have a good financial foundation in place, I think you can take these vacations and not feel guilty about them at all, right? But so let's talk a little bit about how we could do this and do it in a way where we don't feel guilty or we don't regret how much we spend.
Love it.
So I'd say let's start with a budget. So we need to know how much if you just go into this thing blind and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to spend $1,000, $2,000, or $20,000, and you just say, I'll just figure it out as I go, and all of a sudden you get home and you spend $20,000, and you say,
whoops,
I could only afford $2,000, then you're probably going to regret it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, let's like set some clear numbers before, right? And then you can start to figure out, like, as you're booking your transportation, your lodging, right? A lot of these expenses, a number of these expenses, you're actually booking on the front end, right? So you can control how much you're going to pay for your flights. You can control how much you're going to pay for your hotel. There's certain expenses like food, when you get there, that's a little harder to plan for. You can still, though, have a plan for how much you can like spend. And I'll touch on like food in particular in a little bit. But either way, start to consider the cost of the transportation, the lodging. We talked about pets in a previous episode.
Yep.
Think about how much pet care is going to cost if you need to board your pet, or right. So start to set a clear number of what you think this trip will cost. And then create a travel fund. So it's really easy to just have, if you want to go to Hawaii and you start figuring out what the cost for the transportation, the lodging, the food, the pet care, all of that, and you say to take me and my family to Hawaii is going to be $5,000. You can create a travel fund, start putting, let's say $500 a month, whatever you can afford into this fund. And in 10 months, you'll be able to afford it. Mm-hmm. If you can only put $100 a month into this fund, then it's going to take you 50 months, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then you can still make an educated decision and say, yeah, I want to go on this trip in 4 years, 50 months from now. Or you might say, this trip may not be worth it. Why don't we explore another trip that might only cost $1,000, and we would be able to do it in a year, and I would value that more, being able to spend the time with my kids at this age as opposed to waiting 5 years to do it, right? So I think there's pros and cons, but you can start actually getting the information to make like proper evaluations there. And too often would be, again, maybe just saying, well, I want to do this trip now, let me just go spend $5,000, not being able to afford it,
right?
Being one of the 40% who regrets it,
yep.
It being on a credit card, and kind of spiraling out of control, right? Now you're paying interest on a credit card. And
also might leave a bad taste in your mouth as far as like a vacation. You're like, I don't want to travel. I don't want to go to vacation again it's like, well, maybe if it was done a little differently, maybe it would have switched up your mindset on that too. So
yeah, that's a really good point. I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that. So I think setting up some sort of travel fund, and then again, labeling that fund, like if you had literally a different account, do you say, this is just my travel money? I don't think about it for retirement. I don't think about it for anything else. This is just my travel fund. Then when you go travel and you spend down that account, you're probably going to have less regret and less guilt, right? Because that like psychologically, that was earmarked for travel. You had it set aside for travel. You didn't have it set aside for your kid's college, right?
Right. Yep.
So then if you go to Hawaii and you don't have any money set aside for Hawaii, you may end up feeling like, gosh, I don't know, that was tough to pay for. Like, I feel like maybe I'm taking out of my kid's college.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And then again, you might regret it. But if you have set aside money specifically earmarked and you saved over time for vacation, then when you go on vacation, it's, I think, a lot less likely that you're actually going to like regret spending that money or feel guilty. Right. So actually setting aside funds, but psychologically, like labeling it as retirement, I think can like kind of psychologically like psychologically reinforcing your intentionality around doing that can result in like better, like sort of probably more positive mental outcomes.
Oh yeah. I remember when I figured out that I could, I have a credit union, you could pretty much just open accounts with them or whatever for certain things. And remember I was able to find out how I could name them.
Yeah.
And that was super cool to me because it was like, cool, this is vacation money. Like that goes in there, like it's just used for that, or hey, this is retirement or whatever it might be. So yeah, just that psychological aspect, it cannot be undervalued, or overvalued. It's impressive when you're like, cool, that's that money, that's saving for that. Guilt-free spending, it kind of comes into that too. So
absolutely
interesting.
Cool. And then you can start to set, I already touched on this a little bit, but set those realistic expectations. So then again, you can start to figure out, is this trip going to cost me $5,000? Okay. How long is this going to take me? Well, can I save $500 a month and it'll take me 10 months, or is this going to take me 5 years to save up for? And once you have those sort of realistic expectations, then you can start to figure out like, okay, is this a trip I still want to take?
Right.
Maybe a different trip is actually more realistic, right? And then, so that's kind of how I would tackle it from the planning side. And then I would think about like actually booking this thing. And a lot of people will be tied to like a certain airline, and you say like, I have a credit card with this airline, or, I have, I just only travel with them because I have status with them. And I like to get honestly, I like this. That there's a reason why these airlines have status, right? They know that it creates loyalty because people like to have quote unquote status, right? So, if you're too loyal to a single, like say airline, you might be missing deals on other airlines, right? So you can use things like Google Flights and it's like I think an aggregator where you can see a bunch of different airlines. And so you could just say, I want to fly from here to Green Bay, right? And then you can look on Google Flights here to Green Bay, and you'll be able to see a bunch of different airlines. What's the difference between United and American, right? And so you can start to get an idea there. And there's other aggregators, and like there's some of these companies you can set like alerts where, hey, I want to go from here to Ireland. Let me set an alert if the price ever drops below $400. And then now you're notified. You're like, okay, maybe I would love to go to Ireland, but I don't think I can afford it. But honestly, if right now the prices are $800, but I don't know, if the price was there at $400, then I could afford it. Well, you could set an alert, and if the price never gets down there, that trip never happens.
Yep, totally.
Maybe the price does get down there. Maybe something happens, right? So that'd be something to think about as well. Trying to find one of those aggregators that you can set alerts on. And then you can also sort of start to see, and this kind of follows up with alerts, but like traveling on off-peak hours or off-peak
days.
Seasons. Yeah. So a lot of these, like a lot of travel is done with kids. And so a lot of like peak hours are like on kids' spring breaks, kids' summers, right? If you have any sort of flexibility around that and you could travel during down seasons, hey, there's another way where you could maybe see the same thing or enjoy the same vacation for more cost effectively.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny you mentioned that. I remember when I was planning my wife and I were planning our honeymoon.
Yeah.
I was looking at the different things, and I was like, "Dang, why is it so much cheaper to like?" Because we ended up going to Barbados. I was like, "Why is it so much cheaper to go like in October than it is September?" And I was like looking it up. It's like, oh, hurricane season. Like these certain things that like come up. So like and we ended up like choosing a pretty cheap time to go. It's beautiful. We didn't have any issues, but it was like one of those things to look at. Like, oh, like maybe if we go a month later, right? Maybe it might save us, $2,000 or something like that too. So
yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes you can see like multiple $100s of difference on flights just between like spring break and not spring break. And so it can be like you go like 1 week earlier or 2 weeks earlier, and it could be multiple hundreds of dollars of savings. So again, we don't always have that level of flexibility, but these would still be at least the thoughts or the things to be considering. Also, credit card rewards. I'd say use those wisely. Be careful. I don't ever want to like encourage people to use use credit cards. But if you're not carrying over a balance at any point, so you're using a credit card but never carrying over a balance, you're never paying any interest, there would be some ways to capture and take advantage of some of these credit card rewards that could have some potential travel perks associated with them.
Not a doubt.
I would say just watch out. Like a word of warning would be watch out for hidden fees. So like sometimes I'll use a flight aggregator, right? And so I'll be looking at cheap flights and I'll say, oh, this flight's cheap. Perfect. I go look to book that flight. And then you get a little deeper and it's like, oh, do you have any luggage? It's like, oh yeah, you even have to pay for a carry-on or a check bag.
Yeah. Okay. You're like,
so then you go through, so then you go through that whole process and you're like, oh, this got a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. Right. So, that's just one small example, but there's like parking fees, there's different like taxes and again, just like fees on these airlines and hotels and all of that stuff. The resort fees.
There's one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it all adds up, right? So I'd say just be cognizant. Those are really hard. There's kind of a reason why I refer to them as hidden. They're not easy to find, but try to do the due diligence on the front end to find as many of them as you can. And then also part of your budget might be just knowing, hey, if I can afford $5,000, you might say, hey, we're pretty confident there's going to be some hidden fees in here. We don't know which one, if it's going to be a resort fee or an extra cost for the, the luggage on the airline, or like we're not really sure. But we probably shouldn't go around planning and booking a flight that costs exactly, or a trip that costs exactly $5,000, because after we add in these hidden fees, we're going to be over, right? So maybe if you say, hey, I have a $5,000 budget, maybe you try to get this done in $4,000, so hey, with the hidden fees, I'm still going to be safe, right? So it's just something to think about.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And then while you're actually on this trip, right, it's probably good to have a budget that you worked out beforehand where you kind of have like a tentative limit of how much you're going to spend per day. Again, it can be a little easy to get carried away. And so if you don't have like a plan of attack, then you go to a nice restaurant, you get a nice meal, you say, hey, I'm on vacation. Right. And then the next day you find yourself at a nice restaurant again. You're like, hey, I'm on vacation. And then the next day you find yourself at a nice restaurant again. You're like, hey, I'm on vacation. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you have some sort of like rough limit, you can start to get a feel for like, okay, what can I afford each day? And then you could also sort of mix it up. And so maybe you say, as you start to figure out how much I can afford each day is, maybe you say I have $100 each day for food and you want to go to a nice restaurant that's going to cost $150. Well, if you know you can afford $100 a day, that's actually not that big of a deal. You could say, okay, let's do this. I'll pay $150 today. I'm on vacation.
Right. Yeah.
But then the next day, hey, I can only spend $50.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. You got a plan of attack. And after the 2 days, you spend $200, you're within budget, right? But as long as you kind of know that, if you just go into it blindly and you're like, I don't know how much I can spend each day, you might spend $150 every night, right? So just kind of having that plan of attack, I think is wise. And then you can kind of splurge where you want to and cut back where you want to kind of make everything work out.
Yep.
And then just be, again, conscious of maybe like conveniences. So like, I feel like one of the things I see all the time is you go somewhere like tropical-ish and then the sunscreen is outrageous.
Oh, it's insanely overpriced.
Yeah.
And I'm buying it.
Yeah, right.
I can't bring a gallon with me.
Sure. Yeah. You probably could buy some.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then these would be the other things where, gosh, it's super convenient to get it from there. But are you doing any trip into town maybe to get groceries? Maybe you get sunscreen there. Are you, depending on where you're at in the world, maybe you can do like a, what's it called? Not Uber Eats, but like like a DoorDash type thing that could deliver it to you. And hey, DoorDash is expensive too, but if there's a couple of things you need, you might be able to DoorDash something from a store 5 miles away with more reasonable prices. And so it'd just be things to explore. But I think there's a lot of these like kind of convenience expenses. Again, sunscreen always jumps out at me.
Oh, definitely. But I'm very pale myself, so I use that a lot.
But like even like airport food, right? Everybody always jokes about how expensive airline food is. Well, it's because that's a convenience. It's there when you need it. They have like a captured audience on the beach. They know they have a little captured audience there of people who need sunscreen. Right?
Supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. So just be aware of sort of those tourist traps, right? Again, it's usually like the prices drop drastically if you just get off that beaten path just a little bit.
Right.
So if you're willing to give up just a slight inconvenience or give up a slight convenience for an inconvenience, you might be able to save like a significant amount of money. It's like even when you're looking at booking like excursions and stuff, right? Yep. Oftentimes there'll be like an excursion like that you could book through your resort or through your cruise line or something. And it's like there's potentially other excursions that are a little off the beaten path that are half the cost.
Exactly. And they might be doing the exact same things. If it's one big attraction you're going to, it's like, hey, you're probably getting the same experience by going and seeing that waterfall with like whomever.
Yep. And then, you could also then track all of this sort of as you're going. So there's some cool apps out there. Mint, I can't remember if Mint's still around or if it's I heard word that Mint might be that it was kind of closing shop. So I don't know if Mint's still around or not, but there's like YNAB, a budgeting app. You could even just use like Google Sheets. So a shared drive with Google Sheets, and you and your spouse or whoever you're going on the trip with could all log into those Google Sheets and see how much you're spending, right? And then lastly, what I would say is kind of having a debrief after you travel. So like sort of reflect back and say like, okay, how much did we spend? How much did we budget for? Did we go over? If so, why? So you can start to plan for your next trip, right? So, if you're like, we spent way too much money on food, or like in our budget, we thought we were going to spend way less, but we noticed when we were there, we wanted to go to nice dinners every night. Okay, cool. Next time you travel, budget for that, right? You know now that you're the way you like to travel. And then again, it doesn't have to be a big deal. If you budget for it appropriately the next time you go on the trip, you probably won't have those feelings of regret because you saved for it the right way in an account. It's your vacation funds. You've properly budgeted for it. You've saved for it. You're not sacrificing your kids' college or your retirement funds. And now you can go take the trip the right way you want to without these regrets, right? I think there's definitely ways where you can plan for a trip without regret, doing it the right way where you prioritize still your retirement, your long-term goals, your kids' future, and still work in things like work in things like vacations in there, and do it in such a way where you don't have to regret it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's super well broken down just overall. And I think that there's several pieces that hopefully everybody can take from this is, I don't think it's ever a bad, I have a couple of buddies who don't really like to plan anything. They're just like, we're going to go, you guys want to go to, the Bay Area for the weekend. I'm like, for myself, I'm like, cool. Yeah. What are we going to be doing? For myself, as I get older, I plan almost everything exclusively around food. I'm just like, cool. Like, where are we going to be eating? Like, what are we going to be doing? And I've found that like, there's a level of just figuring out like, if you're going to take a trip to Mexico or something like that, and you like, cool, we're going to go on this excursion at least have a rough plan on certain things. One, it just makes it more organized and just better. And you can also save room. Like if things don't go right, you can adjust, you can do whatever. And I think the same way with budgeting, if you have like a little bit of an emergency fund, because it's nice to, you're like, cool, I'm going to save an extra $500 just in case we go over or something like that.
Yep.
You don't use that money, maybe you put it towards the next vacation that you're going to be planning, or your Roth. Shout out.
Yeah.
like whatever it might be. I think that just being able to, I've never found that budgeting has been detrimental, I suppose.
Sure.
Like as long as it's done in a way that you don't super restrict yourself, but you live within your means. Yeah. And I think we've covered that a few other times on this. It's a common theme that we use just overall. But I think these are all great tips and tricks because I was trying to think. I've never really had a bad vacation that I can think of, and just talking about this, I'm like, oh man, yeah, I'd love to start saving for another one. Just in general. So awesome, Ryan. Well, I appreciate you sharing. Hopefully, the listeners get a little bit from that. They can use that when they're planning their next getaway. And anything else you want to say on that topic before we move on to the personal section?
No, that sounds great.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Ryan. We'll be right back, and everybody, hang tight.
And now to put the personal in personal finance.
Welcome back to the personal side of the Fiscal Physical podcast. I am sitting here still with Mr. Ryan Nelson. And Ryan, I got a question for you today. Are you ready?
Let's hear it.
All right. So the question today is, would you rather be a master chef or a master artist? Correct me if I'm wrong. You're not either currently.
I was just going to say, why are you trying to make it out to be that I'm not?
I felt I felt pretty. It's one of those ones where you feel pretty confident. It's what we call in the betting industry a lock. Like that I'm pretty sure that you're not one of those. But if you had to be one of those, which one would you choose?
Yeah, I think I would go with the master chef. I think I like eating.
Sure.
So I'm assuming if I'm a master chef, I get to eat my own creations, right?
I would hope so.
But yeah, I always thought it would be super cool. Like, you see all these cool creation or like, these super healthy foods that look super awesome. It's like, I want all these healthy foods that are super awesome. And I'm assuming a master chef could do that no problem. So I could stick to my my diet, hit my nutrition goals and just love the food I'm eating. And I feel like also like that always, it's a great way to like bring people together, like breaking bread, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course.
Of course. So bringing people together like over a meal is just like a fun experience. So if you're a master chef, you can obviously probably make some create some really cool experiences with that as well.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think that's great. And you made a lot of good points there without a doubt. And it's funny. I was thinking about, I'm turning it back to myself here, but I was considering this question because everything you said makes 100% sense, but I'm an okay cook. Like I can get by. You give me a recipe, I can follow a recipe. I could make something like whatever. Like I always have a hard time of like, cool, how much better would it be if I spent all this time and like learning to be a master at it, like overall, or is it just good to be good at it? But one thing I'm very bad at is art. Sure. I am a terrible artist. I have terrible handwriting. There's like 3 things I could draw if you told me to draw something and people would know what they were. One of them's a star. And I'm just very poor at that. So I think that I think it's so cool. And maybe I've mentioned this previously. Yeah. It's so cool about when somebody can just like, oh no, here, let me draw it for you. And like just draw something out. And like, I'm like, holy cow, you're playing Pictionary with somebody, shout out board games, and somebody just whips out something that you're just like, that's exactly what that is.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
I'm so impressed by that, and I think if I was a master artist, whether I like calligraphy, it looks cool too, like being able to do all these different things, like I think that would be a cool tool in my tool belt. So I think I could be okay at cooking without any master experience, but I'm not good at art, so I'm not even close. So I'd probably go artist myself. But
I like it. There we go.
Awesome. But I appreciate the candor here, and I'd love to challenge the listeners. Would you rather be a master chef or a master artist? And
what are those like the wine and where you go wine and paint things?
Oh yeah. Oh, I refuse to do those.
Really?
Because I'm too scared. Because I'm such a poor artist.
But we could set up a shop where we do like dinner and painting, and so you're the master artist. You could walk them through this little painting thing, and I could whip up a something.
Absolutely. They're like, cool, like you want to come and learn how to paint a star and eat some ravioli? Kind of think some spaghetti. No, I'd challenge, and this will be a good test here too to see who's tuning in here when this episode airs. I'd love to see if you guys send us a text what you guys would prefer. So that's your cue to see if anybody's actually listening to this podcast. So, but anyway, Ryan, I appreciate it as always, my man. Learn something new every time that we do an episode here. So shout out all the listeners. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate the support. And I'll turn it over to you for the last words.
As always, stay the course.
Thank you for joining us for the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Until next time, happy listening. And as always, stay the course. If you have a question or topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. If you enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode. And consider leaving us a rating and review on your favorite platform. This helps other listeners like you find the show. For more resources, you can visit Alchemy Wealth Management's website at www.alchemywealth.com or find your Fiscal Physical, the book, on Amazon. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that personal finance is just that, personal. Please don't take anything we say as advice. The preceding content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not an offer or a solicitation, nor should it be construed or relied upon for tax, legal, or investment advice. It doesn't consider your personal financial situation or objectives and may not be suitable for you.